What if dozens of healthy, athletic young men were vanishing across America, only to be found days or weeks later floating in rivers? What if all of their deaths were ruled accidental, even when families screamed something darker was going on? And what if, at nearly every location where one of these men was found, a mysterious symbol appeared nearby? A smiley face drawn in spray paint, sometimes with horns, sometimes hidden, but always there. This is the chilling story of the Smiley Face Killers, a theory that has haunted internet forums, true crime communities, and police departments for over 2 decades. Some say it's just a coincidence. Others believe it's proof of a coordinated serial killing network, hiding in plain sight. What's the truth? Let's find out. The mystery starts in the late 1990s. In cities across the Midwest, from Minnesota to Wisconsin to Ohio, a strange pattern began to emerge. Young college-age men were going missing after nights out with friends. These weren't the kind of people you'd expect to vanish. They were honor students, athletes, sons from close families. But what's more disturbing is how they were found. Almost every time, the bodies would be discovered weeks later in rivers or lakes. Police would call them accidental drownings, blaming alcohol or misadventure. But 2 retired New York detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, saw something that didn't sit right. They weren't just looking at one city. They were looking at dozens of similar cases, all involving similar victims, found under similar conditions. And they all had one more thing in common: a smiley face, found spray-painted near the body recovery sites. To Gannon, Duarte, and their colleague, criminal justice professor Dr. Lee Gilbertson, this wasn't just bad luck or sloppy police work. This was a pattern, a deliberate and chilling pattern. They proposed the theory that a network of killers, possibly connected online, was responsible for abducting, torturing, and drowning these young men. They believed that these killings weren't random, but ritualistic, carefully planned, and meant to send a message. The message? A twisted smiley face, left like a signature, mocking the victims, the police, and the public. Let's talk about the victims. The typical smiley face killer victim is eerily consistent. Male, aged 18 to 25, athletic, usually in college, last seen late at night, intoxicated, and alone after leaving a bar or party. Almost always found in a body of water, days or weeks later. Chris Jenkins is one of the most famous cases. He was a University of Minnesota student who vanished on Halloween night in 2002. He was last seen being kicked out of a bar, with no coat, phone, or wallet. His body was found 4 months later in the Mississippi River. Initially, police said it was an accidental drowning. But later, after pressure from his family, it was officially ruled a homicide. Why the change? Because the condition of his body didn't match the timeline. He had no water in his lungs, indicating he may have been dead before he entered the river. There were also signs he had been held somewhere, possibly staged. Other victims, like Patrick McNeil, Brian Welzian, and Dakota James, followed similar patterns. Each case on its own might seem explainable, but when viewed together, the coincidences stack up too high to ignore. What about the symbol itself? A smiley face. It sounds almost silly, innocent, something from a cartoon or emoji. But in this context, it's downright chilling. In at least a dozen different cases, smiley face graffiti was found close to where the bodies were recovered, sometimes on a tree, sometimes on a bridge support or wall. Each one crudely drawn, but always familiar. One face had devil horns, another was crying. Some were even drawn upside down. Was it just coincidence? Critics say yes. Smiley faces are one of the most common forms of graffiti, but the investigators believe this was deliberate misdirection. A calling card hidden in something so ordinary, it could be overlooked. And maybe that's the point. As the theory gained media attention, the FBI stepped in to investigate. In 2008, the FBI issued a formal statement, saying they found no evidence of a serial killer or organized group behind the drownings. They said most of the deaths were consistent with accidental drownings, often tied to alcohol use and nighttime misjudgment near water. They dismissed the smiley face graffiti as irrelevant, something you'd find in any urban environment. But that only fueled suspicion. To the investigators and grieving families, it felt like a cover-up, or worse, complete indifference. How could dozens of young men die the same way? And none of it raised red flags. If the Smiley Face Killer theory is real, who is behind it? Gannon and Gilbertson believe this is not the work of a lone serial killer. They believe it's a group, possibly communicating through encrypted apps, forums, or even the dark web. A decentralized network, working in small clusters, sharing techniques and targets. Some theories suggest it could be part of a ritual, or even a cult-like organization that sees these deaths as symbolic. Others believe the group may be selecting victims based on jealousy or hatred, targeting successful, well-liked young men. Whatever the motive, if this is real, the implications are terrifying, because it would mean a silent conspiracy is operating beneath the surface, undetected for decades. These cases aren't just from the early 2000s, they're still happening today. In 2019, Dakota James, a 23-year-old student from Duquesne University, went missing in Pittsburgh after a night out. His body was discovered in the Ohio River 40 days later. Authorities ruled it accidental, but his family insists he was murdered. An independent pathologist revealed his body showed signs of strangulation, not drowning. And yes, a smiley face was reported just a few blocks from where his body was recovered. Even more recently, new victims in Illinois, Wisconsin, and New York have fit the same pattern. Some believe the killers are still active, just smarter, quieter, and more careful than ever. So, is the Smiley Face Killer theory real? It's easy to dismiss it. A bunch of disconnected drownings, all coincidentally involving young men. After all, alcohol and poor choices do lead to accidents, especially near water. And smiley faces are everywhere, right? But here's the part that can't be ignored. Some victims weren't in the water long enough to explain weeks of disappearance. Some had injuries inconsistent with falling or drowning, bruising, ligature marks, and blunt trauma. Some were found posed, with arms crossed, or in places that had already been searched days earlier. That's not a coincidence. And then there's the data, dozens of similar cases across the same regions, over the same time frames, involving the same demographic. Still, without concrete forensic evidence, no authorities have officially acknowledged this theory. That's the problem. No DNA, no fingerprints, no confessions. Just bodies, water, and a creepy, grinning face. But maybe that's by design. If this theory is true, then the killers are smart. They're patient. They plan their crimes. They wait for victims to separate from their friends. They use technology, perhaps even surveillance. And then they disappear, leaving no trace but a name on a missing poster. And, eventually, a body. The smiley face could be a signature, a symbol of control, a way of marking the fact that they got away again. Or maybe it's a joke, a cruel one, shared among people who don't see their victims as human. Maybe the truth isn't just that there are serial killers out there. Maybe the truth is that there are more than one, and they're connected. That's what makes the Smiley Face Killer theory so terrifying. Because if it's real, this could be one of the largest, most organized serial murder operations in American history. And it's still happening, right now, somewhere.